Hollywood, where dreams shine and cigarette smoke hangs in the spotlight. Behind every glamorous scene, someone was puffing, like their Oscar depended on it. From Disney darlings to rock legends, the silver screen had a smoky side it tried to hide. This isn't just a list. It's a nicotine-fueled roller coaster through Tinseltown's ashtray past. Buckle up. We're lighting up the truth one cigarette at a time. Number 1. David Janssen, the fugitive who couldn't outrun the smoke. On screen, David Janssen was always on the move. As Dr. Richard Kimball in The Fugitive, he ran from the law, from injustice, from certain doom. But in real life, he was running straight into a 4-pack-a-day smoking habit, and spoiler alert, it caught him. With his gravelly voice and tough guy charm, Janssen was the blueprint for brooding TV heroes. But that raspy voice, that wasn't just raw masculinity, it was tar, baby. Decades of tobacco slowly sculpted his iconic growl like a toxic vocal coach. On set, he was never without a cigarette. Off set, same deal. Rumor has it, if you saw him without a smoke, you were dreaming or watching a commercial break. He pushed through roles with the stamina of a marathoner who was also chain-smoking during the race. But even Hollywood's hard men have soft spots, and for David, it was his heart, and not in the romantic sense. In 1980, just 48 years old, David dropped dead from a massive heart attack in his Malibu home. No build-up, no dramatic chase scene, just boom, curtains. An autopsy revealed extensive damage to his lungs and arteries. Fans were stunned he was still at the top of his game. The industry lost a leading man. Marlboro lost a loyal customer. Janssen's legacy lives on in reruns and noir-stained nostalgia, but his real-life drama ended not with a bang, but with a puff. Number 2. Patrick Swayze, Dirty Dancing, Dirtier Lungs. Patrick Swayze wasn't just the guy who made millions swoon in Dirty Dancing. He was also the guy who could outsmoke a chimney in a thunderstorm. Behind that chiseled jawline and romantic lifts was a man tearing through up to 60 cigarettes a day like it was part of his dance routine. You think the dirty in Dirty Dancing referred to steamy choreography? It was the cloud of smoke that followed Patrick from set to set. Between Ghost Point Break and Making Everyone Cry with One Soulful Stare, Patrick was chain-smoking, like each puff was a love letter to stress, fame, and existential dread. Even after being diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in 2008, Swayze didn't exactly slam on the brakes. In a now legendary interview with Barbara Walters, he said, "I'll go so far as to say probably smoking had something to do with it." Probably Patrick. That's like saying the Titanic probably hit some ice. And yet, in true Hollywood hero fashion, he kept working, kept riding horses, kept dancing, and kept lighting up. He believed his late father and a group of guardian warriors were protecting him from the other side. But even they couldn't intercept decades of Marlboro warfare. Patrick passed away in 2009 at just 57. The world lost a heartthrob, and somewhere a lone cigarette burned itself out in tribute. Are you ready to commit to quitting smoking? If so, leave a comment saying, "I quit smoking," and let's start our journey to a healthier life together. Number 3, Audrey Hepburn, Grace, Glamour, and a Whole Lot of Smoke. Audrey Hepburn, the face of elegance, the queen of breakfast at Tiffany's, and plot twist, the proud owner of a 3-pack-a-day smoking habit. That's right. While the world saw a poised, pearl-wearing fashion icon with a croissant and coffee, Audrey was off-camera chain-smoking like a jazz club saxophonist at midnight. She lit her first cigarette at just 15. Fame came fast, and so did the pressure. Paparazzi red carpets, perfect posture, and press junkets. How did Audrey cope with a cloud of nicotine, darling? Whether filming Roman holiday charade or just sipping coffee outside Tiffany's, her real co-star was always the cigarette. And not just for show, this wasn't method acting, it was survival. Her fans saw grace. Her friends saw anxiety wrapped in silk and smoke. But smoking, as it does, came back for its final scene. At 62, Audrey was diagnosed with a rare abdominal cancer linked to the same family as colon cancer, an ailment with a known connection to smoking. She was the definition of timeless beauty, but behind that flawless smile was a struggle lit one cigarette at a time. In the end, her legacy still sparkles. But the smoke, it lingered long after the final cut. Number 4. Marty Feldman, the man who smoked more than he joked. Marty Feldman wasn't just the guy with the wild, googly eyes and genius comic timing. He was also a 5-pack-a-day nicotine machine. That's not a typo. 5 packs a day. If lungs could talk, his would have filed a restraining order. Long before he was stealing scenes in Young Frankenstein with Abby Normal Energy, Marty was puffing his way through the BBC as a comedy writer. On set-off-set in the bathroom, probably while sleeping, Marty smoked like his next laugh depended on it. He wasn't addicted. He was committed. His cigarette budget could have funded a low-budget indie film. And sure, he made millions laugh. But inside, his heart was playing a dangerous game of chicken with his habit. In 1982, while filming Yellowbeard in Mexico City, his heart called it quits. Massive heart attack. Age 48, Hollywood lost one of its sharpest minds, and Philip Morris probably held a moment of silence. His death shocked the industry, but let's be honest, it didn't shock his cardiologist. Marty may be remembered for his bug-eyed brilliance and razor wit, but behind the punchlines was a trail of smoke he never managed to outrun. Gone too soon, but hey, at least he went out mid-laugh. Number 5. Walt Disney. Behind the mouse, a cloud of smoke. You thought Walt Disney was all fairy dust, smiling mice, and wholesome magic. Think again. The man who gave us talking animals and dreams come true was also chain-smoking, like Tomorrowland depended on it. Behind every enchanted castle was a guy puffing through reality one cigarette at a time. Walt smoked so much it was practically his second job. Office meetings, cigarette. Storyboarding, Bambi, cigarette. Building Disneyland, cigarette. He was rarely seen without one, unless a camera was around. Then, poof, Disney magic. The studio worked overtime to protect his squeaky clean image. Cigarettes were airbrushed out of photos, and even Saving Mr. Banks banned Tom Hanks from lighting up as Walt. But no amount of editing could erase what was happening inside his lungs. By the mid-60s, Walt's health was crumbling like a gingerbread house in the rain. Diagnosed with lung cancer in 1966, he had a lung removed and underwent radiation. It was too late. The man who built an empire on dreams died at 65. His official cause, circulatory collapse caused by, you guessed it, cancer. He left behind a legacy of wonder joy and generational imagination, but also a silent warning: even magic can't cancel the effects of a lifetime spent in smoke. Number 6, George Formby, the ukulele king of comedy and cigarettes. George Formby wasn't your typical Hollywood heartthrob. He wasn't brooding, he wasn't rugged, but he was the cheeky British entertainer who could charm a crowd with nothing more than a ukulele, a grin, and a cloud of woodbine smoke thick enough to fog Big Ben. During the 1930s and 40s, George was the UK box office king, singing goofy songs, cracking clever jokes, and puffing away like he was auditioning to be a chimney sweep in Mary Poppins. 40 unfiltered, full-strength cigarettes a day. He called them his coffin nails, which honestly is both hilarious and wildly prophetic. Even after a heart attack in 1949, George was like doctor's orders. Never heard of her. He ignored rest, ditched rehab, and kept chain-smoking like the show couldn't go on without nicotine in his bloodstream. Because for George, a performance without smoke was like tea without biscuits, blasphemy. But in 1961, life threw him a cruel punchline. After attending his wife's funeral, he suffered another massive heart attack. It was so severe he received last rites on arrival at the hospital. He pulled through for 5 days. Then just like that, the curtain dropped at age 56. George left behind laughter melodies and one hell of a haze. His songs were light, his lungs were heavy, and his legacy, part music, part smoke signal. Number 7, Desi Arnaz, Cigars, Comedy, and a Smoke-Filled Empire. Desi Arnaz wasn't just Lucy's charming, chaotic husband on I Love Lucy. He was also the real-life cigar-chomping powerhouse who practically invented modern television while puffing away like Cuban cigars were oxygen. Whether he was running Desilu Productions, inventing the 3-camera sitcom, or yelling Babalu with flair, Desi had one hand on the future of TV and the other wrapped around a hand-rolled Cuban stogie. On-screen cigar, backstage cigar business meeting. Make it 2. His lungs were less organs and more ashtrays with ambition. Doctors warned him. His son begged him. Even cancer tried to intervene. But Desi's reply was pure Arnaz, keep the jokes coming and light me another. He once said giving up cigars would be like giving up his Cuban soul. Unfortunately, his lungs didn't share that sentiment. By the time he finally sobered up after years of booze and smoke, it was too late. In 1986, Desi was diagnosed with lung cancer. And unlike cigarettes, those premium Cuban cigars didn't come with a warning label, but they came with consequences. His doctor told the LA Times bluntly, "It was the cigars that did it." Desi died at 69, leaving behind a revolutionized industry, endless reruns, and a smoky trail that no air purifier could handle. Number 8. Vivien Leigh, Beauty Breakdown and 4 packs a day. Vivien Leigh wasn't just Scarlett O'Hara, she was the fire, the fury, and unfortunately, the fumes. Behind that porcelain skin and Oscar-winning performances was a smoking habit so intense it could outpace a freight train. We're talking 4 packs a day. That's not Southern charm, that's a full-blown nicotine assault. From Gone with the Wind to a streetcar named Desire, Vivien lit up the screen and her lungs. The stress of fame, a turbulent marriage to Laurence Olivier, and an ongoing battle with bipolar disorder created the perfect storm, and cigarettes were her lifeboat. Her coping mechanism wasn't therapy, it was lighting one smoke with the ember of the last. Her iconic, raspy elegance, not entirely God-given, more like Marlboro-assisted. The woman could crush a monologue and a filter in the same breath. But that fierce glamour came with a brutal price tag. In 1944, she collapsed mid-rehearsal and was diagnosed with tuberculosis, a disease that does not pair well with chain smoking. Doctors told her to quit. Vivien lit another. Life told her to slow down. Vivien picked up the pace. She juggled fame, illness, insomnia, and addiction, one with a cigarette in each hand like a tragic, smoky ballerina. In 1967, at just 53, she died from complications related to TB. Her lungs couldn't take the double punch of disease and decades of smoke. Number 9. Julie London. Smoke in her voice, fire in her lungs. Julie London didn't just sing torch songs, she lived them one smoky note at a time. With a voice like velvet soaked in bourbon, Julie could melt a room with a single lyric. But that sultry, smoky tone wasn't just natural charm, it was brought to you by up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Yeah, girl was basically chain-smoking her way through the jazz charts. She started young, just 16, and by the time Hollywood and the nightclub circuit came knocking, nicotine was her silent co-star. Whether in the studio, on stage, or on set, if there was oxygen in the room, Julie was doing her best to turn it into secondhand smoke. She didn't just sing the blues, she exhaled them. Ironically, the very cigarettes that gave her that unforgettable sound were also the ones slowly shredding her vocal cords. Over the years, that trademark rasp went from sexy to strained, and her voice, once a siren's call, began to crack under the weight of habit. As her singing career faded and roles dried up, the cigarettes stuck around like an ex who never got the hint. In 1995, a stroke hit hard. Then came the lung cancer diagnosis. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't jazzy, and it sure as hell wasn't fair. Julie passed away in 2000 at age 74, her once scorching voice finally silenced by the very thing that made it iconic. A torch singer to the end, burned out by the fire she carried in her lungs. Number 10, Jack Webb, Just the Facts and a Whole Lot of Smoke. Jack Webb didn't just play Detective Joe Friday on Dragnet. He was Joe Friday. No nonsense. Straight-faced. All business. But off-screen, the only mystery Jack couldn't solve was why he kept lighting up despite having asthma. Yep. The man who couldn't breathe properly still smoked up to 4 packs a day like it was some kind of police training drill. From childhood asthma to adult denial, Jack puffed with the precision of a man reading Miranda rights to his lungs. Doctors warned him. His own body begged him. At one point, they even told him he had a suspicious ulcer that might be cancerous. Jack's response: skip the follow-up. Light another Chesterfield. In fact, he proudly starred in a 1954 cigarette ad, because who needs lungs when you've got sponsorship? On Dragnet, smoking wasn't just a habit. It was practically a supporting character. The man looked like he was interrogating suspects through a fog machine. Viewers saw tough, gritty realism. His lungs saw a 4-alarm fire. Eventually, even the badge couldn't protect him. In 1982, Jack dropped dead of a heart attack at 62. The official cause, arteriosclerosis, a fancy way of saying, too many smokes, buddy. The case was closed, but the lesson stayed open. Even the toughest detectives can't cross-examine their arteries. Number 11. Tallulah Bankhead, smoke, sass, and 150 cigarettes a day. If drama had a face, a drink, and a cigarette, it was Tallulah Bankhead. This Broadway-born, Hollywood-blazing hurricane wasn't just a star. She was a full-blown 5-alarm fire fueled by wit whiskey and about 150 cigarettes a day. That's not a typo. That's a full-time job with overtime. Born into Southern aristocracy and raised to rebel, Tallulah ditched politics for theater gin and one-liners that could cut glass. Her signature voice, think gravel meets glamour. It wasn't just genetic, it was marinated in nicotine. Wherever she went, the smoke followed. She didn't walk into a room, she floated in on a haze of tobacco and chaos. Doctors begged her to quit. She laughed, ordered another bourbon, and lit up 2 more. After nearly dying from a hysterectomy in 1933, her response, "Don't think this has taught me a lesson." Iconic, unhinged, unapologetically Tallulah. But even legends can't outdrink or outsmoke biology. Years of chain smoking turned her lungs into an ashtray. Chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and finally double pneumonia. She died at 66 with her raspy laugh echoing long after the smoke cleared. Tallulah wasn't just a diva, she was a full-blown theatrical event. And if you're wondering what 150 cigarettes a day sounds like, just imagine a lion purring through a megaphone dipped in sass. Number 12, Barbara Stanwyck, the smoking gun in heels. Barbara Stanwyck wasn't just a screen legend. She was the original femme fatale, wrapped in sass, grit, and cigarette smoke. The star of Double Indemnity didn't just act tough, she lived it. And her secret weapon, not just sharp dialogue or killer heels, but cigarettes, lots of them. She started smoking at age 9. Yes, 9. While other kids played hopscotch, Barbara was lighting up like she was prepping for a noir thriller. To her, smoking wasn't a vice, it was armor, a ritual, a power move. Through personal tragedies and Hollywood's boys' club politics, she puffed her way through scripts and sorrow. That iconic, raspy voice, pure Stanwyck and a little bit Lucky Strike. But even tough dames have breaking points. In 1982, while filming The Thornbirds, she inhaled too much artificial smoke on set. The result, severe bronchitis. Combine that with decades of real smoke, and her lungs were done playing along. Breathing came a struggle. Roles slowed down. Even Barbara had to admit maybe lighting up wasn't so glamorous anymore. In 1990, she passed away at 82 from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and heart failure, closing the final scene of a career built on strength, style, and smoke. Number 13. Keith Richards, Cigarettes, Chaos, and the Immortal Rocker. Keith Richards isn't just a rock legend, he's living, wheezing proof that medical science has no idea what's going on. As the iconic guitarist of the Rolling Stones, Keith lit up arenas, and more impressively, thousands of cigarettes, often at the same time. This man didn't have a nicotine addiction. He had a relationship with it. Cigarettes weren't a habit, they were a food group. Add in heroin, cocaine, whiskey, and God knows what. And by all logic, Keith should have been a ghost by 1980. But nope. He kept rolling, literally, like a cigarette with a guitar. Arrested more times than some people go to the grocery store, Keith somehow kept surviving, kept shredding, and kept chain-smoking with rock star swagger. His signature look, bedhead eyeliner cigarette dangling from his mouth, and a smirk that said, "Yeah, I'm still here." But plot twist in 2018. Keith finally quit smoking, not from rehab, not from pressure, but thanks to nicotine patches. Yep, the man who outlived narcotics, stage dives, and electrical shocks was brought to his knees by adhesives. Now in his 80s, Keith is still breathing, still touring, and still defying every doctor's expectations. He may be the only person in history to survive on rock and roll spite and cigarette smoke and live to tell the tale. Number 14. Charles Lane, the grumpy old man who outlived his cigarettes. Charles Lane had the face of every cranky clerk, stern judge, and uptight boss Hollywood ever needed, and the lungs of a man who chain-smoked for 70 years. That's not a career. That's a nicotine marathon. With over 350 film and TV credits, Lane was the ultimate that guy. Didn't know his name, didn't matter. He stole every scene with one eyebrow raise and the aura of a man who'd yell at you for blinking too loud. What most people didn't see was the pack-a-day habit behind that gravelly growl. He smoked like it was written into his contract, and maybe it was. Doctors warned him. Friends raised eyebrows. Lane. He puffed right through the noise. By the 1910s, his lungs were staging a protest, and he was rushed to the hospital for breathing issues. When asked if he'd quit smoking, his legendary response, "I gave it up 45 minutes ago." Eventually, even he had to put the lighter down, not out of willpower, but probably because walking 5 steps without gasping became a challenge. And yet this iron-lunged enigma lived to 102. Yes, 102. He outlived his co-stars, his doctors, and every anti-smoking ad campaign ever made. Number 15. Michael Landon, Little House, Big Clouds. Michael Landon was America's golden boy. The heartthrob cowboy on Bonanza, the tear-jerking angel in Highway to Heaven, and the dad every viewer secretly wished they had. But behind that perfect hair, dazzling smile, and family-friendly glow was a not-so-heavenly secret: 4 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day. Yep, Pa Ingalls was basically a nicotine furnace in boots. While he preached morals on screen backstage, he was coughing like a diesel engine in winter. castmates said his socks smelled like smoke because he literally stored his cigarettes in them. Forget cologne, Michael wore eau de tobacco. He lit up between takes, during takes, possibly in his sleep. His nickname on set, Socks. Not for his fashion, because every step he took was followed by a puff of smoke. He worked non-stop, powered by coffee bourbon and enough nicotine to haze over a zip code. But even angels fall. In 1991, doctors diagnosed him with advanced pancreatic cancer that had already spread to his liver and lymph nodes. Ever the performer, Landon joked, "I just hope I don't lose my hair. People have been reviewing it for 35 years. The humor stayed. The health didn't. Just months after the diagnosis, Landon passed away at 54. Fans mourned the loss of a television legend. Number 16, Suzanne Pleshette, velvet voice, smoky exit. Suzanne Pleshette had a voice like warm bourbon, smooth, sultry, and just a little bit dangerous. It made producers swoon, audiences lean in, and casting directors scream, "That's the one." But here's the twist, that golden tone wasn't just natural. It came with a 2-pack-a-day price tag. Her true co-star, nicotine. Whether she was charming Bob Newhart or lighting up the screen in Rome. Adventure. Suzanne puffed through lines, interviews, rehearsals, you name it. Cigarettes weren't a habit, they were a lifestyle accessory. That husky purr, part talent, part tar. For years, Hollywood loved the sound. But her lungs? Not so much. By the late 90s, even Suzanne had to admit the show couldn't go on with her Marlboros in the spotlight. She quit cold turkey in 1997. Applause, please. Unfortunately, the damage was already baked in. In 2006, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. Surgery removed part of her lung, but the fight wasn't over. Through it all, she kept the grace, the humor, and the voice. She passed away in 2008 at age 70, leaving behind a smoky legend wrapped in charm and warning labels. She quit too late, but, darling, she never lost her fire. Number 17, Red Fox, the king of comedy and cartons of camels. Red Fox wasn't just funny. He was explosively, unapologetically, in-your-face hilarious. As Fred Sanford on Sanford and Son, he faked more heart attacks than most people have birthdays. But off-screen, the heart attacks were real, and so was the 4 to 5 pack a day smoking habit that fueled them. Born into hustle and raised on grit, had smoked like the IRS was taxing oxygen. Camels were his brand, and he didn't just endorse them, he lived them. He even starred in cigarette ads in the 60s. Because hey, why not get paid for what you're already doing? By the truckload, between divorces, comedy gigs, and battling the government, over $2.5 million in back taxes, Jed never let go of his cigarettes. His lungs were in a long-term abusive relationship. And guess who refused to break up in 1991? While filming The Royal Family, Red collapsed on set. The cast thought he was doing his trademark fake heart attack bit. Spoiler, he wasn't. This time the pain was real. He was rushed to the hospital and died at 68. Number 18. Al Lewis, Grandpa Munster protests and perpetual cigars. Al Lewis wasn't your average TV grandpa, unless your grandpa wore a cape, lived in a Gothic mansion, and chain-smoked cheap cigars like they were breath mints. As Grandpa Munster, he brought spooky charm to primetime. Off-screen, he brought cigars, sarcasm, and sass to everything else. Cigars weren't just a prop, they were practically part of his skeletal structure. He smoked them on set, at protests, in interviews, at breakfast. While other celebs were hitting juice bars and yoga, Al was railing against the government with a stogie in one hand and a hot take in the other. Doctors warned him. Fans raised eyebrows. Al laughed and lit another. And here's the kicker, unlike nearly every tobacco-loving peer, he didn't die of cancer, heart disease, or lung failure. No tragic diagnosis, just good old-fashioned old age. Yeah, Al Lewis smoked cigars for decades and still made it to 82. And because he was Al Lewis, forever eccentric, gloriously theatrical, he didn't get buried in some boring urn. Nope. His ashes were placed in his favorite cigar box. That's not a punchline. That's his final mic drop. He was part rebel, part grandfather, all legend. If you ever see a puff of smoke floating mysteriously across a protest rally, don't worry, it's just Grandpa Munster still raising hell. Number 19. Kathleen Turner, the voice that lit up and burned down. Kathleen Turner didn't just enter Hollywood, she growled her way in. That iconic, husky voice, a director's dream, a casting agent's jackpot, and a cigarette's love letter. From Body Heat to Romancing the Stone. Kathleen didn't just act, she smoldered. And behind the scenes, she was lighting up like it was rehearsal for a film noir. She wasn't shy about it either. Kathleen was a full-time smoker and part-time wine enthusiast with a lighter never far from reach. Her voice became her trademark equal parts velvet and fire hazard. Producers loved it. Her lungs, not so much. Then came the twist: Hollywood didn't write rheumatoid arthritis. Mid-career, her body betrayed her. High heels out, wine glasses hard to hold, walking a painful ordeal.